Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sippin' on Stories podcast. I'm Mandy Corey. I'm your host, and I'm so delighted that you're here to wrap up the month of June for the podcast. Speaking of which, I'm going to get a little bit real and honest about this podcast. I know I say it every week, but it really has been so fun. But man, can I just talk about for a second how it is also kind of stressful and kind of hard, which I knew that it was going to be going into it. Of course, it's not like anything is easy, but yeah, it's a little bit scary each week being like, will I have an episode for the following week? And sometimes I really don't know if I'm going to. And the feeling of like having to talk to myself and say, if there is no episode, that does not make you a failure. It doesn't make this podcast a failure. I went into this podcast purely because I wanted something fun for me to do as a hobby. And it has been that. It has been really fun. I have been able to have conversations with people that I have never talked to before. I've rekindled old friendships. I have deepened the ones that I already have. So it's definitely been worth it. But man, every week there is a little bit of like, whew, okay, we got another one. We have a story. And that's kind of how I feel. Like I looked at the calendar and I realized that this was going to be the last episode of the month of June. And I was like, well, we did it. Mandy, you did it. You got it through another month. And gave myself a little pat on the back and said, good job. And this isn't me saying that I'm going anywhere. I still plan to keep doing this. I still have episodes and interviews lined up. But just a little bit of honesty and vulnerability on my end. Also, regarding this specific episode, I decided to interview my husband. I thought this will be an easy one, you guys. Like the other ones, not that any of them have been hard. They've all been good and enjoyable. But I just thought that this would be a chill episode, a very easy one to throw together and put out there. It was not. It was not. In fact, it ended up being one of my hardest ones. And that probably is because of the fact that he is my husband. And so there was a lot of banter and a lot of things that were said that I probably wouldn't put out there to the world on the podcast. A lot of like, oh yeah, no, I'll redo that. And, whatever it was. And if I'm being completely honest, we recorded this twice. So there are multiple interviews molded into one. The editing process for this was quite the adventure for me. So I'm going to leave that up to you to see if you can tell where the different days, the different interviews are all mixed up and put together. I'm just kidding. You don't have to tell me those things because I already know where they are. So if you hear it, just say, oh yeah, nope, that's what Mandy was talking about. She probably put that in there from a different day and just keep on going. So, but I am actually really grateful for Britt because, and I said this in the episode, him and I are very different people. Sometimes I'm like, how did we get this to work in the first place? Honestly, I was probably just talking so much at the beginning of our relationship. Little insight. When we first started talking and dating, I would call him on the phone, back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, we didn't text each other. I would call him on the landlines and I would talk to him on the phone and I would just talk and talk and talk. I don't even know if he talked back. I just kept talking until eventually he would say, all right, well, I'm going to go. I'll talk to you later. And I would just be like, excuse me. Do you not like to talk to me? And he'd just be like, no, like we've been talking forever. Like I thought it was just time for us to get off. And it just kind of baffled me because I just didn't understand why somebody wouldn't want to talk on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And that has just continued through our relationship in that I will just talk forever. And Britt would prefer to really not talk at all. Details are not his thing. I mean, he cares about people, but he does not need to know every detail of every person's life. And if he hears it, he doesn't like lock it into memory. We're just so different in that, which again is one of the reasons why I said this podcast is again for me, because maybe somebody else needs to hear like all the different stories and details about things that Britt may not find interesting. So I'm going to talk to all of you guys instead. With that being said, Britt came on, and I know how much he hates, and it's not even that he hates giving details. It's that he just like legitimately doesn't think that they're important. And so he just doesn't say them. And so the fact that he came on to a podcast where I want the details to the stories, I know it was a challenge for him, but he didn't even complain once or twice when I made him do it again. He's just been a really big supporter of me in this podcast, and he's been proud of me as I've been doing it. So thank you to him. I love him. We just celebrated 15 years of marriage, actually. So I may have said that already on this podcast before, but regardless, Britt is a trauma nurse. He currently works, he works sometimes in a hospital, and then his full-time job is a flight nurse, which is a pretty cool job. So he is going to come on and just kind of talk about getting into that job, share a couple stories from that job. And yeah, I did decide to leave in a little bit extra of the banter that we were doing through the podcast that I normally probably would have edited out, even though it's not like I usually have that banter with other people. But regardless, I decided to leave it in just to give you a little bit, of insight into our relationship. And I don't know, maybe you won't find it funny like I did, but I'm going to go back and listen to it, I'm sure, and I will enjoy listening to it myself. So here is Britt for today's episode of the Sippin' on Stories podcast.
Do I have to put my mouth like right on it?
Pretty much.
Is this what I'm supposed to do? Am I making out with Carrie right now?
No, she was holding it away. Hello.
Is
hello,
it
hello.
best to speak straight into it?
Yeah, it is.
Like so.
Yeah.
Now it's like when you recorded with everyone else, could they not see your face like this? I can't even see what
when I
your
recorded on
reactions
the thing, I was like, sorry, you can't see me, but okay, it's recording.
It's recording now?
It's recording now.
Are
We're
you
picking
going
up all
to
this.
delete all this? Okay,
No,
give me your
keep it.
intro.
Yeah, this part feels awkward.
Is it always like this?
Having the intro at the beginning?
Or like, do you just, like, what do you do? Take it away. It's your podcast. I'm ready.
Okay. Today we have one of my favorite people in the world. I have roped my husband, Britt, into coming on the podcast today, and sharing details to stories is just his favorite thing. He could just go on and on and on, all the details.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
And
I'm so delighted.
That's right. And I'm lying. This is like his worst nightmare, having to tell a story with details, but it's too bad.
I have enjoyed listening to your stories. It's been good.
Thanks, babe. One of the differences with Britt and I is that I love my soda. I love to go to the soda shops, putting in all the syrups, creams, all the things. Britt does not. So Britt, tell us what your favorite drink is. It does not have to be soda, but...
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sipping on soda.
You're not. Sipping on a story.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sipping on a story. I enjoy Baja Blast Mountain Dew when I go to Taco Bell.
Or, now they have it in the cans.
They do, but I don't like it as much out of the cans.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's meant to be drank with a Crunchwrap Supreme.
But I don't think I would actually say that's your favorite drink. You do not have that it's not what you request every day.
I don't request anything.
Yes, you do.
Now you have to edit all this out.
I don't. Tell us what your favorite drink is that you like to have.
I don't request
With
anything.
its fancy
but
name.
if I... Huh?
with its fancy name.
I'm definitely not saying that.
I'll say it and I'll say it wrong.
We can start over again.
Ashurla. How do I say it? Ashurla? Shorla.
I will respond to you when we restart the podcast. You're not allowing me to say what I wanted to. So
okay.
Is that not my favorite soda?
I didn't
Isn't
ask
that the question?
No, I said, what's your favorite drink?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that Shorla is my favorite drink.
What would you say is your favorite drink?
Mountain Dew.
Baja Blast, or just Mountain Dew?
With the Crunchwrap Supreme.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. Am I drinking it every day? No, but
I don't ever hear you say, I could really use a Baja Blast. I hear a,
you hear me say, there better be a Baja Blast in there, or you're going back to Taco Bell.
Okay, that may be true, but you love your Shoreless.
Back it up and start over.
Sneeze. I must pee my pants.
You probably did pee your pants.
All right. I'll try again. One of the differences between Britt and I's relationship is our beverage choices. I love my dirty sodas every day, and he can't stand them.
I don't even like the term dirty sodas.
Nope, I was watching his eyes to see what he did when I said that. Actually, I didn't see anything, but he hates the dirty sodas.
I don't even like this.
Hates the Stanleys.
Of the dirty soda.
He hates the cups.
Stanleys are the biggest sham in this world. Everybody's been conned into buying these garbage drink cups that tip over so easily and just spill everything left and right. They're terrible. They're trash. They are not ergonomic. They are not anything. They're terrible.
He doesn't just hate Stanley's. He hates all water bottles.
No, just a normal water bottle's fine.
No. Anyway, it's one of our differences. So, Britt, what is your drink of choice?
If I'm just drinking a pop, it's going to be Mountain Dew. But my favorite is Baja Blast with the Crunchwrap Supreme.
From Taco Bell.
Still Mountain Dew, I guess, but Baja Blast.
All right. Now, I have asked Britt to come on because he is a trauma nurse. So I said, just come on and tell us a few stories of things that you've encountered in your job. I don't know if you want to say anything about yourself. I guess I just did, but
do you want me to say how I got where I am?
Yeah. Like
my career path?
Yeah.
Is that what you're wanting?
If in the end you're I don't like it, I'll just delete it.
So like you said, I'm a nurse. I went to school and got my bachelor's degree, my BSN. And as I was going through school, I just had a lot of interest in emergency medicine. Initially, I had gotten into it thinking that I might be interested in working in the NICU with the babies or peds. But as I was in there, I just fell in love with the ER because you get to see all of those things. You get to see a brand new baby that's just a day old that's sick and coming back into the ER after they had been discharged the day before, all the way up to somebody that's over 100 years old and everything in between. And so there's just a lot of variety in the ER. And so that really piqued my interest. I also really like the fact that in the ER we get to use a lot of skills that you don't get to use in the hospital a lot of times. When patients are admitted, it's the nurses in the ER that get to start the IVs and draw the labs and collect everything, send it down, kind of see the picture develop as the person that initially comes in sick and you don't know what's wrong with them. You kind of get to see that puzzle get solved. But that exciting initial rush of oh, there's a really sick patient, what's going on with them, we don't know exactly. the extent of the injuries or like why they're really sick. And so you get to kind of troubleshoot that, use all your skills, and then, admit them or discharge them home and send them on their way.
And the ER is this fun place. That's why every TV show pretty much takes place in the ER and not in
I guess
other areas.
You definitely see a lot of crazy things that you wouldn't see anywhere else. That's for sure.
I'm gonna take off my sweater. Pause. I'm gonna take off my sweater. I'm hot.
You didn't give a warning. I feel like I'm out of breath.
Do you want a drink or something?
No.
Continue.
Anyway, so I guess that was just a long way of saying that just the variety, the kind of speed that everything happens, patients in and out is really why I became interested in it. And then the other thing was that when I was in school, I remember the specific instant when I looked in a book and saw that like there was like a helicopter in there, and I looked at it and was just like, whoa, like what's this flight nursing thing all about? And even going into school, I didn't really think of that as an option or know anything about it. I was just like, man, that's really cool. Like I had never really thought about like what clinicians or like who does life flight and what that looks like. And so when I found out that nurses did that, I was just like, man, that sounds like a really cool job. And so when I got into the ER, you're having those flights come in all the time. I worked at a trauma center, and or I should say I still do. I work at a trauma center, and so we were just like constantly having helicopters come in, and you would see the patients that they would have, and they'd be transporting the sickest of the sick patients to you, and or just like patients from a scene call, and they were like a really bad trauma, and you just saw these clinicians bringing in these patients that just seemed like they knew so much, were very competent, giving really good care.
They're really cool.
Yeah, they just show up in their flight suits, and you're just like, man, that is just a really cool thing that they get to do. You just get used to working in the hospital and just seeing the same rooms and hallways. Day after day, and they're out there flying around the mountains and landing, by the lakes and on the roads and shutting down the freeway and everything. And you're just like, man, that is just something that's just so interesting. And so I just started thinking to myself, like, that's something that I really want to do one day. And just thought to myself, like, if I don't take that opportunity with the experience that I have, I would really regret that. And so after several years, I decided to apply for a flight position, and it kind of just fell into my lap, really. And I felt pretty lucky that when I applied for the position, they offered me a position in another area that services Yellowstone National Park, and I thought that was just like a really cool area. And so since it wasn't like posted for that one, they were just like, hey, we were wondering if you would be like, if a spot opened in this area, would you be willing to do that? And I was just like, absolutely. So I was like kind of like interviewing for an area that nobody else was applying to. And so I kind of felt like that gave me like an edge or a secret backdoor way into the job, and I've felt like an imposter ever since in there that I don't belong with all these awesome clinicians that I work with. Anyway, but got the job doing that, and it's just been fun ever since.
And so I said, there's been many years, and he doesn't think that stories from his job are interesting because that's just his everyday life, and they're not cool or fun or weird or whatever. He doesn't even think his job is cool anymore, and I disagree. And as do all of my friends and family.
Well, it's just one of those things where when you're doing it, you're just like going to work. Even now flying, like I never take for granted like looking out the window in the helicopter, because I'm always just like, man, this is so cool. Like I can't believe I get to do this. Like that never changes. But in terms of like the patients that you see and like what's like coming in through the ER doors, and and the patients that we transport, like all of that just seems like more of the same, I guess. Like you always think that you like, you're always surprised because there's always more things coming in that you're just like, you can't make this up. Like I would have never guessed in a million years that this story is happening right now for the patients and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's just like nothing surprises you because you've just seen it all. Like when somebody's just like, oh, what kind of things do you see? It's like anything that you can imagine. In terms of like just like weird stories or like injuries or that kind of thing, like you just see it all, and so it just seems like work when you go in now. And yeah, it's like when people want to know what kind of stories and what kind of things you see in the ER or in the flight world, it's just like that can mean a few different things, and you never know what your audience is really looking for. And so there's like the type of people that are just like, you know, what's the craziest thing you've seen? And it's just like sometimes they want to hear about like, you know, a crazy trauma that's super weird or whatever. And then other people are like, oh, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So that's me. I asked him to just think of a few things, and he's had a little bit of time to think. What do you got for me, babe?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's just like I was saying, when people ask you like, what's the weirdest thing you've seen? It's like some people are just like, oh, you know, there's just a foreign object in someone's rectum or something like that. Like that's like the classic story that everybody wants to hear.
That's what I told you to tell.
And it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh, you see stuff all the time. Oh, oops, I slipped in my shower and there's a shampoo bottle up my rectum or something like that. Like that's a legit thing. Like people come in and say that, and you're just like, okay, if you say so. I don't care either way. We're just here to take it out. But there was one time a patient came in and they had supposedly been over to their significant other's house and came in a few days later after that, and we're just like, hey, I've had something up my rectum now for a few days. I thought that it would be able to come out, and it just hasn't. And you're just like, okay, like, you know, what kind of toy or anything like that? And they're just like, no, like it was kind of like a homemade toy thing that we were using. And you're just like, okay, like this is super weird. And you just don't really like have a good idea of what's going on. And then they take the x-ray, and on the x-ray you could see that it was like large. It was like pretty big, and you're just like man,
when you say large,
like probably like the size of like your forearm. Okay. like a fist and a forearm. And you're just like, what in the world is that? Like, it doesn't look like, and like, it just doesn't look like anything that I had seen before. And they were like, yeah, it was made at home. And I'm just like, okay. Anyway, for something like that, typically the patient needs to be sedated to get it out, and they can do that in the ER.
Did they come in with their significant other?
No, that person was not there. I don't know if there really was one. It was kind of one of those things where it's just like, it just doesn't seem like there might have been anyone else around. But yeah. Anyway, and so they sedate the patient and end up removing this foreign body. And when it came out, it was just like, oh my goodness, like it was quite large, and you didn't like fully grasp on the x-ray like how big it was going to be. And when it came out, it was like just a bunch of like medical supplies that had been
like bandages,
like gauze and Coban. Like Coban had been wrapped around it, and then they had like Coban's like the stretchy stuff, like after you get a blood draw.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, they had like wrapped it around and then like wrapped it up in like some like latex glove type, like it was like a long glove. and had like a big old knob on the end, and it was like just like one of those things where you like look at it and they like the surgeon that was taken out just like presents it to the nurse because it's got to go to pathology, like they do a little test on it and whatnot. Anyway, they like hand it to the nurse, and it's just like a gift of this like giant thing that had been in this guy's rectum. So yeah, like those kinds of stories are pretty classic.
Are they embarrassed after the fact? Like when you see them after, they're like, yeah, this
it
is
just
embarrassing.
depends, because like sometimes you'll have like a couple come in, and like they'll be like the patient will be a female, and they'll be just like, yeah, there's a foreign body that's stuck somewhere, and they're kind of like embarrassed about it, and then like their partner, like it could be a guy or a girl, will just be like laughing and just be like, it's in their butt. And like there was one time specifically I can remember, like it goes like quiet in the room, you could like hear it vibrating and everything, and the guy was just cracking up, just thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and the girl was just like, yeah, she was embarrassed and everything. And so stuff like that's always like pretty entertaining, makes for some good laughs at work and that kind of thing. But just, you know, usually the patients are pretty lighthearted about it. But so there's like that kind of stuff, and then, you know, the other stuff that people are looking for when they're like, oh, like what kind of stuff do you see is the traumas. And, you know, like those can be anything, like anything you can think of. You know, auger accidents, you know, having people's limbs removed, and, you know, motor vehicle accidents where there's amputations and that kind of thing. And yeah, you just never know what just never know what it's going to be. But the reality is when people ask that question, usually they frame it in like, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And that's not a polite question for people that are in this line of work. It's, you know, you see a lot of pretty traumatizing stuff, and it's, you know, you can ask about like, you know, if they've seen some crazy stuff like that, but to talk about the worst stuff that a lot of people have seen in healthcare is pretty bad. You know, child abuse cases and that kind of thing, it's pretty dark. And so, yeah, usually it's just best to just let them tell fun stories and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can tell when he comes home and it's been a traumatizing one. You can tell it kind of rocks you.
Most everybody just has to find a way to cope with it, because it's a pretty emotionally demanding job to be able to bounce around and take care of super sick people, and super, you know, or like really tragic situations, and then turn around and be able to play and joke with a kid or somebody that even just feels, you know, stressed. You want to make that less stressful for them by just having a good attitude and being positive when you're in with them.
Mm-hmm. How do you cope with it?
You know, just kind of talk with the people that were a part of it. Just because you're all on the same page, you all saw the same stuff, you know, can really relate to each other. And so that's usually who I would open up to about that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I'd want him to open up to me about it, and I just kind of had to learn that was just not my role with that. So, which is fine. All right, let's think. If there's one thing that you can think of that was
I used to keep a list of interesting stories.
Did you?
Yeah.
Where did you keep that?
It's on my phone.
Go get it. What are we doing here? I literally said
it was only like two stories long, because they're all just so blasé.
When I said think of some stories and you said I've got nothing, meanwhile you've literally got a list in your phone.
Yeah. One guy cut off both of his testicles at different times.
Okay.
Because
yeah, start there.
Dog bit off a guy's testicle.
Do that one.
The guy that tased the moose and got punched in the face. The grandma that got stabbed because of the taking away a kid's
Cell phone. Yeah, that's right.
The one guy that stabbed his roommate and tried to cut off his head.
Okay, yeah, just any of these.
Have you ever heard of HIPAA?
Yeah, I have. I have heard of it.
Do you want to lose your livelihood?
I don't.
This is the most realistic one. The frequent flyers that come in for like everything, like literally come in for like an itchy nose or like whatever. And then she had a broken femur for 3 weeks and was walking on it and never came in for it.
Because it was real.
Huh?
Because it was real.
And she didn't
Yeah,
come.
like I'm just like, you literally come in for everything and you won't come in for a broken femur. It's insane. The guy that was hiding from the cops in the attic, and they sent in the dog after him, and the dog was like chewing on his foot, but then he couldn't like back out, and so they had to like cut him down out. They pushed a bed underneath him and he fell in, and so he like comes in like just completely covered in insulation, and he had to get checked out because his foot was like all mangled from a dog. Now what?
What were some of the other ones you had on that list?
You want to hear about the biggest bowel movement?
I do.
Well, when I was in school, there was this patient in the ICU, and they were quite large. Like, they were probably 500 plus pounds. And the nurses were just like, hey, can you help this patient up? Yep, no problem. Get him onto a commode just at the bedside. And they're just like, yeah, they said that they need to have a bowel movement. And so this patient starts having a bowel movement. And next thing I know, the commode, like normally it just like, it's a bucket that just like sits onto a chair essentially.
Like a toilet?
Yeah, it's just like a toilet
something?
seat in the bucket. Like you lift the lid and you can set the bucket on just like a little support, like 2 little support things on the side, and then close the lid, and then the patient sits on it and they can go. Great for, old ladies that can't get up and move around, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this patient wasn't super mobile. They were in the ICU and they hadn't had a bowel movement for a while, and so they're just like, oh great, they've got to have bowel movement. Ambulate them, get them on there. Okay, great. Well, next thing I know, it smells like death as this is happening, and next thing I know, the bucket just drops out from the commode and just smashes on the ground, and it is full to the brim with feces.
Like diarrhea?
No,
Or like
no,
solid?
it's like soft serve, like. Just curled up all the way to the top, and I don't even know how much it weighed. Like
You should have weighed it.
It was disturbing. There are babies that have been born smaller than what that bowel movement was. No question in my mind. And
Just an enema, or is that what they did for that?
no, the patient had just had it. Like
With no...
Yeah, it was just like the patient hadn't had a bowel movement, and it was just like time to go. As far as I know, it wasn't our patient. I was just there helping.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a nursing student, like that's all you're doing is like just the tasks that the nurses don't really want to do, and so you're the one helping them with that. Yeah, and so it was astonishing the amount. I just couldn't believe it.
Well, I was going to say, what's a happy one that you've done, but I don't know what that would look like.
I'd say that the most rewarding ones are when I don't know, I'd say that the most rewarding ones are when a patient comes in and they're just super sick, and when you see those patients come in that are really like kind of circling the drain, and you know that they wouldn't have that much longer before they would start getting in real trouble, when you can like really like just watch them like come back and start doing better and that kind of thing, just from the interventions that you do. That's always something that's positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and you could tell everybody how realistic all their ER shows are that they watch on TV.
They are so realistic. In fact, all that I do all day long is sit in the corner while the doctors give all the care and take care of all the patients. Mm-hmm. The best part is when they are ambulating the patients and walking them around and really invested in their life story. And I can just sit from the corner and watch. It's great. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think that most ERs don't even employ nurses from what I've seen on TV.
I mean, I would agree.
No, most of them are trash and not realistic at all. There's a lot of like plot holes in like the care that they provide to the patients and everything.
They shock a lot of hearts.
They shock a lot of asystole, which is when it like flatlines on the monitor, and that is not a real thing.
And I told Britt that's wrong because that's what every
Mandy
show
thinks
shows
that it's
me.
a thing. She wants it to be a thing so bad. But when a patient flatlines, there's just nothing that you can do with the monitor. Like, you cannot shock that. And so you just do chest compressions. You just continue your CPR. You give your epi. And just keep going until it's not asystole anymore. So... But, I recently watched the series The Pit. It's pretty accurate. It's very, there's
still a lot of doctors.
There are still a lot of doctors.
And not many nurses.
Yeah, that is true. But as far as, the types of patients that you see, the treatments that they get, just the overall kind of, flow of a really busy ER like that, is pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. And so that one's probably been one of the few that I've actually been able to tolerate, just because a lot of the other ones are just so atrocious.
I have to watch
the other real
them by
thing
myself,
is that,
or else he'll come in and ruin every
episode. The other real thing is that all the nurses and doctors are getting together in the broom closet.
Britt likes to tell me that that's not happening
24/7. Yeah. Yep.
How often do you have family members of patients, let's say in the ER? Because probably not in the helicopter. But because on TV, family likes to get real emotional and yell at everybody. How accurate is that?
Oh, 100%. That's one of the most difficult things, is if you just were able to take care of a patient, it would be the best job in the world. But you also have to be like a social worker for family members. You're also a waiter, running them drinks and all that kind of stuff. You've got to do it all. And family members make it really difficult.
When I asked that, do you have any specific one that you came to your mind of oh yeah, there was this one where...
Usually I would say that the most agitated that patients' families got was when they had brought them there wanting them to receive care, and the patient wasn't agreeing to it,
Like behavioral health type
no,
care?
Not necessarily. Well, yeah, but the ones that come specifically to mind are patients that are dealing with alcoholism. Mm-hmm. They would... a family member that is just so desperate to get them help, they can see themselves, they can see them, or like drug addicts, that kind of thing. They can see these family members literally drinking themselves to death, and they finally get them to a point where they have just loaded them up, brought them into the hospital, and they're just we want this person to be admitted. They need to detox, they need help, and we would... you can't do that. These patients have their autonomy. They can make their own decisions. And so when they would bring them in, they would be their alcohol levels would be sky high. So their blood alcohol would be over 400, 500. You can just see these crazy numbers. So that's a 0.4, and the legal limit would be a 0.08. It would be a 0.4 or higher. And so they're just completely intoxicated. they don't know what's going on, and the family just knows that when they get sober, they won't want it anymore. And so I remember so many times just trying to explain this to the family of like, you've brought this person here. I understand, like, my heart goes out to you. Like, they are going to kill themselves. Like, the decisions that they're making, this addiction that they have, they're going to kill themselves by continuing to drink, by continuing to use these drugs and whatever. But we cannot force them into the hospital. And so if it's just like they're intoxicated, they'll usually sit in the ER forever as their alcohol level comes down. But the second that they start, to actually withdraw as that level comes down, and start feeling uncomfortable, feeling shaky, feeling nauseous, they start sweating and all of that, they are going to have that desire for another drink or, whatever substance they might be addicted to. They're going to be wanting that. And then all of a sudden it's just like, no, I don't want this anymore. I want to leave, because it's just so uncomfortable for them. And so I remember family members, and that's the other thing too, is like a lot of times in the ER, like there's not enough room to just like house these people. And so what we'd say is we'd be like, hey, if they need to go home and sober up and decide on their own that they want to be admitted, and then we'll take them in and get them admitted. And so having that conversation with family that's just like at their wits' end, they are afraid for their family member, they would just blow up, just like to the point of like threatening staff. Staff is assaulted all the time.
I would say that was my next question. It's like, how many times does the security have to step in?
All the time.
With every family like that?
Every day there is some sort of, in the ER, every day there's some sort of like altercation where it's just like, hey, somebody call security, like a patient is, getting violent, a family member is getting violent, like whatever. Usually it's a patient that's like, going through something that would do that, but it does happen with family members.
Have you had someone be violent with you?
Yeah,
like pushing you type stuff?
Yeah. I mean, like I don't know if there's a nurse out there that hasn't had something like that happen. There was this patient that came in. He had come in multiple times over the course of several weeks, months, and he was always high on meth. Meth was the drug of choice for this particular patient. And one time he was getting pretty belligerent when he had come in the door just right off. And the way that the ER is set up, they're all pretty much the same. You have like some sort of person out front at the reception desk. I think at the time they even had kiosks, but that doesn't matter. But like people could check in through the kiosks or with the receptionist, which is a CNA where I work. And they had called for some help out front, and another nurse and I go out there.
When you say he's being belligerent, what does that mean? Like swearing at you?
Yeah, people just come in through the doors and just immediately start swearing at you,
saying,
yelling at you.
Or what?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a family member that's just like, I've got family back there, you let me back right now. And, you can't just willy-nilly let people in. Like, it's a secured unit for the most part. And so, yeah, when people come in and they're acting like that, you just have absolutely no idea what they're going to do, what they actually want, what they need.
But this guy, he was just
he was just making a scene, just yelling and intimidating, threatening the person that was out there. And so we have radios. They'll just call and just say, hey, I need some assistance out here.
Who called? You did? Or no, the CNA?
Yeah, whoever was out front. I can't even remember who it was at the time. Anyway, and so me and another nurse go out there, and it's this patient that we know very well because he had been coming out there, and we're trying to like talk him down and calm him down. But he was just so out of it. He just like kept escalating. And at this point we had said like, hey, we actually need security out here. We need an officer to come. And
was he like in your face?
Yeah, he was like getting up in our faces, He even pushed the other nurse that was out there with me back. And so we're just like, he wasn't like, the nurse wasn't going to back down. He's just like, look, you can't act like this out here. Like, we've got to calm down, that kind of thing. And that's when he pulled out a knife. And
From his pocket?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just pulled it out, and it's kind of like pointing it back and forth.
Like a little pocket knife?
Yeah, just a normal pocket knife. And it's just kind of like pointing it back and forth between me and the other nurse. And, you know, at the time, like, I was a fairly new nurse at this point, and I was just kind of like, whoa, like, is this normal? Like, is this something that's just like in the day-to-day? And the other nurse had been there a couple of years longer than I had, and yeah, it kind of like he didn't act like surprised by it at all. And it was like within like just a few seconds after that he had done that the officer like comes around the corner and just tackles him down. Actually, like, there was like this pillar there. They like kind of go into the pillar and then are down on the ground. And I was kind of hoping he would tase him at that point, but the taser comes out from time to time in the ER, but not too often. Anyway, but yeah, just subdued him and took the weapon away from him, and you know, he was taken into custody, but still needed to be, you know, medically evaluated and that kind of thing. And then after he got checked out, was, you know, they decide if they need to be admitted, or if they are clear and can go to jail. So that's where he ended up. And that's just like, it's just part of the job. But
has this job been everything you've hoped it'd be?
Which part? This career path?
This career path. Yeah.
I definitely enjoy it. I didn't think I'd be doing it for this long.
What was do you remember the very first flight call you got that you were like, whoa, this is what I thought this job was going to be?
Yeah, I think that I remember those ones pretty vividly just because it's all new. And I was actually traveling out of state to the base that I was working at, where I was like on orientation, I guess you'd call it. And so you're riding with in my case, a medic partner, because you fly medic nurse typically, and then the pilot. And so my medic partner was kind of teaching me and just helping me kind of get the hang of things. Anyway, we went on a call, and this was one of the first helicopter rides that I had. We went on a call for an accident on the interstate, and it was quite a ways away from the base that I was working at, and it sounded like it was pretty bad just from the information that we had gotten. You don't get a ton of information on the page usually. It's just like MVA or...
We don't know what that means.
Motor vehicle accident.
Oh, I thought you said never mind, keep going.
And so it'll just be like MVA. You know, they may have like the most basic information about the patient once you accept the call of like gender and like if they're unconscious or that kind of thing. But usually, you know, it may say like CPR in progress if that's going on. But for the most part, you don't really have any idea like what the patient actually looks like. But when you're in the helicopter, you can kind of radio to the ground contact that's there once you get close enough, and they can kind of relay a little bit of that to you, or they'll like call through our dispatcher, and the dispatcher will come on and say like, hey, they're saying that this patient isn't doing too good, this or that. Anyway, and so we come up and land on scene, and when we got out, like you could just immediately tell that the patient had expired, and the ambulance crew was just getting there before.
When you say the patient expired, that just means they died.
Yes, they were dead.
Okay, you're using fancy terminology.
That's just colloquial language in the medical community. Anyway, and so the ambulance crew was just getting there, and he had been riding a motorcycle with a group of people. They were all from out of state, just kind of doing like a cross country kind of thing. And there was a flatbed trailer that had stopped in the interstate to like kind of turn off. It was a pretty rural area. And as they were turning off, the rider just ran right into the back of it. And so they had like kind of just left him there, where he was, and he was just kind of like leaning up against it. And when I'm like looking at him, and keep in mind, like, this is my very first a scene call, like landing on the scene of an accident or the scene of a complaint or something like that, versus like I had been in the hospital all this time. So I'd seen stuff like this in the hospital, but it was new, like being there and just being like, you don't know like what to expect or anything. And anyway, we like still like check him out just to kind of see what's going on, see if he really is, you know, breathing or anything like that. And I kind of like lift up his shirt, because he had, you know, you could kind of see that something was going on with his abdomen, and it was completely sliced open, and just like everything was just like hanging out. And so you're just like, okay, yeah, like he's not good. Yeah, he's not going to survive this, even if there was anything.
Did it feel different seeing that versus if you were to see that in the ER? Did it feel more like traumatic seeing it in person?
No,
there?
not more traumatic, but I mean, it is different just because the environment is different, you know. Like in a hospital, everything's controlled. They bring them in like on a stretcher, you know, move them over. You can look at a patient and just be like, okay, like, you know, CPR's already in progress. They're doing CPR on somebody like that. And so, you know, working pre-hospital, you just see a lot more, because like a patient like that, you wouldn't typically transport to the hospital, because there's nothing that can be done, you know. Mm-hmm. It's not survivable, and they've already expired, passed away, and
where all of his friends are probably gathered around.
Yeah, they were just sitting there, and you know, being on scene, that's also different. Like, people obviously have people pass away in the hospital, and they come in and they're grieving and like trying to deal with those emotions. When you're on a scene, it's like even more so, because it like just happened right in front of them. And you know, whether it be somebody, you know, died in their own home or out on the road or whatever it may be, like people are like trying to process those emotions and process everything that's going on. And so it just feels different, even though, you know, it's kind of the same job. But so that was like my first scene call. And then I remember my first inter-facility transport, which is just from one hospital to another. Typically, I think we were on the fixed wing. We might have been on a rotor,
aka airplane,
a helicopter,
or helicopter.
Yeah. That was, yeah.
I had to learn that very early on.
Fixed wing is an airplane. Rotor is a helicopter. I actually can't remember that, to be honest. What I'm pretty sure. No, we were on the fixed wing. And anyway, you go in to these. Typically, it's like a smaller facility. You're picking up at like a rural place that just doesn't have the capabilities to take care of the patients. They don't have like a specialty that's needed, or, you know, a specific kind of surgeon, like that kind of thing. And in this case, I go in there, and this is a pregnant patient, and she had preeclampsia, and it had developed into HELLP syndrome. So she needed some specialized medication. She needed, you know, all the drips and the things to keep her blood pressure down as best as we could. And she needed transported out so that they could deliver the baby. Once you get to that point, the only treatment that's going to actually help the condition that they have is to deliver.
Have the baby.
Yeah. And so she needed to go to a bigger hospital and that kind of thing. And I just remember walking in, and the hospital that I am used to working in, it's a level 2 trauma center. They have all the specialties that you could need. They rarely transfer anything out. And so it was very different, because I didn't have any experience working in like smaller, more rural places that don't have as many capabilities and as much staffing. And you go into some of these places and they're just so grateful to see you because they, a patient is just like not doing well and they're not where they need to be. And so the staff is just doing the best they can to kind of keep this patient doing as well as they can, but get them out as quickly as possible. And so when we showed up, the provider and the nurse were just so frantic trying to get him out. And I remember realizing at that point, like, this patient is like super, super sick and she needs to not be here, and just like realizing like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot of weight on you of like to be able to provide that care, because we have pretty much all the equipment and the medications that we need to sustain somebody, like improve them some and sustain them to get wherever they need to be. But sometimes it's like, even with everything that you have, there's only so much that you can do, and they just need to be somewhere else. And so that was like really eye-opening for me, of being like, oh my gosh, like I am very overwhelmed with what needs to be done, and that this patient is so sick and, might
Was
have a
she,
bad
like,
outcome. Yeah, she was alert. She was doing okay that way, but with those things, there's a really high potential that they can start having seizures and that kind of thing. And when you have seizures in the airplane, that's usually not an ideal place for them. And so a lot of times it ends up that those patients will have to be intubated, and we have to control their airway and that kind of thing. And so you're doing like everything you can, giving the meds that you can to try and prevent the patients from getting worse and like having seizures or any other complications while you're going.
Now, do you remember what it was like when you dropped her off? Was it like a sigh of relief?
Oh yeah. And that's with every patient. Every time you walk in, it doesn't matter how critical they are or not. It's just that window of time that you have them, where it's like just you and your partner. It's like, even if it's something that seems simple, you never know what's really going on. Like, we had one patient that we transported and everything seemed really run of the mill, like kind of chest pain, a little pain in the back, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is a cardiac something, but not a big deal. We see them all the time. We transport them all the time, go through all of our protocols and everything, drop off. And the patient was just like so grateful, just like really good spirits, and was feeling much better than when we had initially picked him up. And then when we do a follow-up phone call, the hospital is just like, oh yeah, that patient passed away like 30 minutes after you left. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, everything was going well. And turns out that they had an aortic aneurysm that ruptured. And there's just nothing that can be done at that point. They'll bleed out within just a few seconds. And yeah, by the time you get the CT scan and everything that would have like diagnosed that, it's too late. And so you just never know which calls you think are like just simple run of the mill, can turn really serious really quickly. And so because of that, it's just like always in the back of your mind, like, just get him to the hospital better than how we picked him up. And then you kind of just like relax.
Mm-hmm. Well, Britt hated every second of this. You will not know how much I deleted, how many bloopers there were, and how much I was trying to force out of him to get me these stories. So I'm grateful that he came on and gave us a view. He's shaking his head.
None of that's true. I loved being on here.
It's very true.
I'm very proud of you for your hard work and effort on these podcasts. And they've been very enjoyable.
Britt's been very supportive. He doesn't like listening to detailed stories, and he's listened to every single one of my episodes so far because he loves me.
They've been inspiring.
Very.
And I am very proud of you for what you do. I'm sitting over here just being like, that's my husband. You're laughing because you don't think you're cool, but I am.
It's all in a day's work.
Take a bow.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm proud of you and everything that you do.
I'm more proud of you. Everything you do. You're the true hero.
We know that's
Being
why.
at home with the kids is 10 times harder.
I keep them alive in a different way, but just say
You keep
just
them
say you're welcome.
alive in the most important way.
Just say you're welcome.
You are welcome.
All right. Love you, babe.
Love you more. You're not going to like that exit. You're not going to like that outro.
There was no belch in this. Have you ever seen the movie, the Bee Movie? In my head, I assume everybody has, but I have 4 kids and every single one of them has really loved that movie at some point. And so we've seen it a lot. Anyway, if you have seen it, there is these bees in the movie and they are called, I'm going to call them Tracker Jackers. I'm pretty sure that's on Hunger Games. I'm going to look this up. Let's see. Yes, the pollen jocks. Okay, so in the movie, there's the pollen jocks, and they come in their little outfits into the hive, just looking like they're so cool. They're the bees that get to go out and do all the pollinating and get to leave the hive, and then they come back, and everyone's like, ooh, the pollen jocks. In my head, that is Britt. That is Britt and his crew in the helicopters. I think that he is just such a baddie. And I'm not the only one. Multiple people have told me that they think that he is just so cool. And I know that Britt has thought that about them as well until he actually got the job. And now, like I said, he doesn't think he's cool. But I'm going to applaud him and everyone in that profession for the things that he and they do and encounter. I asked Britt if I could talk about it on the podcast or if he would talk about it on the podcast. And he said no because HIPAA. That's one thing, you guys, is he is so, he's just so good. He was having such a hard time saying some of the things that he was trying to share because he did not want to break HIPAA, which is great. And he should not break HIPAA. But I had asked him if he could share one of his most recent calls that they got for his job, and he said no because he didn't want people to know who he worked for and whatever. But he was on call for a pretty serious accident that had happened that had made national news fairly recently. And the fact that he was on that call, I just could not believe it. The things that he had to see. And I just remember asking him, were you not just sitting there, looking at what was happening and saying, I can't believe that I'm right here and this is right by me and this is happening? And he's just like, this is just the job. And I'm just like, I can't do it. There are people that are cut out to be nurses, and I am not one of those people. I would have such a hard time coming home and shutting my brain off to all the different terrible things that I would see every single day, and I don't know how they do that. So I'm so grateful for the nurses, doctors, the medics, all the first responder people. Just thank you to all of them for everything that they do. I know that they can get a bad rap sometimes when things aren't going well, or you have to wait a long time in the hospital, or you've heard me talk about calling 911 on this podcast quite a bit and the hard time with that. And I just, even with all of that, I am just really grateful for them. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed that episode with me and Britt. I love you guys. If you knew, like I said, if you knew how long it took me to edit that episode, you would know how much I truly loved you guys, because I took some time, you guys. I'm just kidding. Love you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. I will see you here again next Tuesday for an all new episode of the Sippin' on Stories podcast. Bye, you guys.